Howdy, all Moglax Lives. I think it's time to play a little 7 Days to Die. Alright, so I was just out wandering around, trying to see if there was another set of roads or something down through here. Clearly there is not, so I'll just mountainous terrain. So just go around punching some zombies in the face. So, man, I have Starlink for my internet, right? It works pretty good. It's not perfect. It definitely has some lag issues that aren't terrible but are noticeable. And even with the slight lag I see, it's still better than my old internet by far. I haven't really played anything that I can really test it, I guess. Like, some games you can play online, right? And they're pretty forgiving. I played Destiny for like an hour or so, and maybe even longer than that, and I didn't notice any issues with that. And but I also didn't do any multiplayer shooter stuff. They do play some Fortnite here. I won't, of course. I've talked about that many times. And so they said it works pretty good. Other than the occasional lag where the satellites are switching over. It switches satellites a lot, which isn't necessarily a problem, but the fact that it switches satellites isn't the problem, but occasionally there won't be a satellite in close range, and so when it switches to one a little bit farther away, we get a lag spike for a hot second. And so like in voice chat, right, I'll notice when it lags out maybe 2 or 3 times in a 3 or 4 hours conversation. So it's not noticeable really most of the time. And yeah, so I'm pretty happy with it, but it does need to be put in place permanently, which I haven't done yet. So when you get it, it comes with this little tiny stand, and it's like maybe 2.5, 3 feet tall. Once you put the stand on the ground or wherever you put it. So when I first put it down, I put it on my deck because it was winter, and there's a tree in the way, and the house is in the way. Well, I've moved it since then, and where I moved it to seems like a really good spot for me. No obstructions. It's pretty much out of the way. I mean, it's in the yard, so I mean that would be, I guess, in the way. But we don't drive there or anything. There's nothing like that. And so so the problem is I need to be able to bury the cable because it's got a long cable that runs from the house, and I can't just leave that laying on top of my lawn, right? And so I need some conduit for it. Conduit being the tubing that you run cable through if you're going to mount it outside. Now the cable is rated for outside, but it's not rated for burying it underground. And you don't want to bury it loose underground anyways, because animals will bite it. That's my one concern I have for that cable, is that an animal is going to bite it. We have wild rabbits that run around, and what I know from pet rabbits like to bite cables. I'm very worried that the wild rabbits are going to want to bite the cable. um, you know, groundhogs, which are, rodents, and um, I don't think a squirrel would bite it. But, burrowing animals, we have moles or voles or, something's going to want to bite this cable, and I don't trust it. So I got to put in a conduit. And so I was like, okay, so I've got to get conduit. And I looked online to see what people were using, and somebody's like, oh, yeah, you just use 1-inch conduit. And I'm like, ooh, 1 inch? Really? 1 inch? That's a pretty big pipe. Because conduit is basically just a pipe. And I'm like, that seems pretty large. So I don't know about that. It doesn't sound large, but it really is for what I want to do. And so I'm like, okay, I've got some 1/2-inch conduit. I wonder if that'll work. And so I use my finger to measure the size of the drill bit we use to drill the hole to run the cable out through. Now the cable's got a weird end on it. It's got a regular USB type end on it, but the casing around it is different because it's got like a rubber gasket to keep moisture out. It's got a specifically designed shape so that it slides into the slit in the pipe that holds the dish, and so I was concerned that that part probably wouldn't fit through because a 1/2 inch is plenty big enough for a regular USB cable. And so I had a piece here in the basement, and I grabbed it and shoved my finger down inside the conduit. And I'm like, okay, well, my finger fit fine, and that's what I used to measure for the drill bit, so this should work. And I mowed the lawn last week, and I saw that where my other conduit was, I bought a bunch of conduit for a project that I never did. We moved before I could do the project. It was the next project after the one I was on when we moved. Basically, we moved while I was in the middle of remodeling, and so I had 2 rooms left to go. And so all that stuff came here. Um, and so uh, I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get that conduit. I'm gonna bury this cable. And so I get in this shed, and the shed it's pretty big. It's basically a garage, but it's got like a workbench down the middle of it, and then on the one end is a garage door that opens. So that's where I keep the lawnmower, and where the old broke down lawnmower and the uh, I swear I just heard a zombie. Old broke down lawnmower, snowmobile doesn't work, a dune buggy that needs work, or not a dune buggy, a go-kart, um, and those 3 things don't belong here, but nobody will do anything about it. And one of these days, I'm just gonna drag them out to the road, I think. But so clearly, the shed is packed full of stuff. Obviously, things that I don't think belong, things that shouldn't be in there, probably, things that didn't need to be moved in there. Because they collect things. So like they're throwing out a bunch of chairs at work. So let's go ahead and bring home those stacks of chairs because we're gonna use them. They just need some work. So they got moved from the garage where they were in the way to the shed where they're in the way, kind of thing. And so I'm like, oh, wow, I've got so much stuff I've got to drag out of the way. Or like broken parts off of a vehicle that was in a wreck. I don't know why those are in this shed. Oh, I was gonna wrench this guy. That's not gonna work. And so I'm dragging stuff out of the way, and I get over to near the conduit. Now the problem is that when I put stuff in the shed originally, the shed has got lots of nice racks around the outside of it, and so I racked a bunch of 2x4s. But somebody's been in the 2x4s, and they're scattered all over the place, and then loose like 1x and just all the board stuff seems to be everywhere. And there's like a giant plastic tub full of chunks of wood that I don't even know where it came from. I'm not certain. There's like, I don't know who put it in there, but there's like 3 big plastic tubs. I don't know where they came from, and all 3 of them are full of stuff. And I don't know. One's full of firewood, one's full of loose boards. I don't know where that came from. And one is full of just random stuff. I think there's like a birdhouse on a pole, and like a huge birdhouse, and some tools like a shovel and a pitchfork and something else, and belts that came off of stuff, and that kind of stuff. Just not a lot. Just I don't know. I don't know why it's in there. I don't know, and pretty lazy, so haven't been able to bring myself to clean a giant mess that I didn't do in the first place. But so I can't move the box that's in between me and the conduit because it is full, like 3/4 full, and it's taller than my waist of loose wood, I think, and like bits of board and stuff. Not something I brought, not something that belongs to me. I don't know where it came from. I don't know why it exists. And nice. And so I could just get one hand on it if I leaned over the bundle of conduit that I had stuck in the rack on the wall. Now, next to that was a rack of 2x4s, but like I said, somebody had been messing with the 2x4s, so they weren't stacked very well. And so, man, when I started yanking out those conduit, I had to move a bunch of stuff, a bunch of boards in the first place to even get to it. So I started I bent over, leaned over the big plastic tub of boards, and was lifting up the conduit bundle so that I could unhook it from where it was tucked into the vertical rack. And oh man, wouldn't you know it, but that top came over and caught a bunch of the 2x4s that were misstacked, and the whole thing of 2x4s just came down on my shoulder, right next to my neck, like barely missed my head. And like, man, woo, I had not been hit that hard in a long time. You know when you, that's not true. I got hit that hard last year, from somebody else's mess. When I fell in that hole and about broke my knee. I filled that hole in finally. But, yeah, I was stunned for a second. It hit so hard. Um, you know that feeling where you get hit so hard that it's not like numb, but you're not nauseous, but it's that kind of feeling, just stunned all through your body for a couple of seconds. Yeah, it was that. And then, so I did get my conduit out, and then can you believe it didn't fit? The end on that cable has this little plastic U shape that that's the width of the thin metal that the pipe is made out of, and that little U shape fits into the U shape on the metal just to make sure it's in the right spot. And that little bit is how much is too big. Otherwise, it would fit. Other than that one tiny little piece, it would have fit. I'm just like, oh, are you kidding me? So now I've done gone and busted myself up trying to get this conduit, and it doesn't even fit. Oh, I was not happy. So yeah, so I gotta get more conduit. I'm gonna check the bags of concrete that are laid in the middle of the path You'd think a shed, plenty of places you could put stuff, that just as far in as you can find an empty spot and then dump it would not be your first choice. But, you know, what am I expecting for people who go to hand you things by barely moving their arms away from themselves? I was playing a board game, right? We were playing a board game. And so, you know, it's got like one big set of dice, but you gotta trade the dice around a little bit every once in a while. And so I'm like, yeah, hand me the dice. And then they take the dice. I have to lean 3/4 of the way across the table to reach where they stick their hand to because they won't hold their arm out. Like it's too much of a burden. That kind of stuff. That's how they pack things away, too. Ugh. But anyways, so that'll probably be my plan for maybe this weekend. Maybe not, though. I think they're going away, and I don't have a truck. And so if they are gone with the truck, I cannot... I cannot go get conduit. Conduit comes in 10-foot length pole of plastic pipe for the kind I'm using. Don't think that's gonna fit in my car. I thought about having it delivered, but ugh, like they want to schedule the delivery, which means I have to sign for it, which I hate doing. Cause you know how they schedule, right? It's not a schedule. It's we'll be there sometime between 2 and 7 p.m. And then at 6:58, we'll call you to say we're running a little late. Would it be okay if we show up at 7:30, and then at 7:45 you get the call and said, "Oh, turns out we can't make it today. Can we reschedule for tomorrow? We'll be there sometime between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m." And then they show up at noon. Yeah, that's not how it goes for you, but that's how it goes for me. I wonder if I can cut across through here. But doesn't look like it'd be too bad of a project, actually. The pipe, oh, of course. I say of course because it ran out of gas right underneath that vulture. Stupid vulture. Listen, man, I ate a large ration. Why can't you be happy with that? Yeah. Talked to my nephew. Said he might be here this week for D&D. Said he's planning on it, but that's what he always says. My sister plays the piano professionally sometimes, so I say professionally, I mean like for graduations and stuff. I don't mean like she's in a band. And so she was at a thing playing the piano. I think it was a bell choir or something. And so my sister-in-law was there, and she had my nephew with her, and so then she was going to some other meeting after that, and then shopping, and so he came over here instead, since we're not exactly on the way, but within a couple of minutes of being on the way. And so we hung out for a little bit. And we'll see if we can manage to play some D&D this week. I still need to get that Starfinder prepped for the next session after that, though. Uh, yeah, I can't think of anything else really that's been going on with me. Other than a couple of sore shoulders. Uh, one that I'm just not sure what the deal is with it, but the other one has massive scrape and bruising from having a bunch of boards fall on it. Was not fun. It's not fun at all. And then not even have it fit. That was a frustrating part. Go through all that and then find out that it's the wrong size. I was tempted to get out a grinder or a utility knife and just scrape that little U shape off because it's just the tiniest bit of plastic, right? Without that tiny little raised U shape of plastic, it would just slid right down through there. I'd have been golden. Well, it might not have slid down through there that easy. I might have had to get out a fishing weight and run some string down in there, tie it to the end of it or something. But, my bedroll is still out here, so I know I was going to skip out of this building, or this town here. Well, it was, no, it is this town. Yep. So I'm going to head back to this other town here, because this one is just too tough for me. And the other ones are in territories with vultures. I mean, all the territories have vultures, but this one in the forest doesn't have them just rando flying around, so that's my goal to get away from. Oh, we did play Bard Song this weekend. I talked about a little bit about that. So Bard Song's one of the Kickstarted board games that I purchased, and it's pretty cool. Still trying to get the handle on the rules, but I almost feel like this is a different town than the other town. There's like 3 towns all smashed together here. Or is it like the suburbs in between 2 town centers? And, anyways, so the first time we played it, I completely misread the rules. And the game is very random, and I didn't realize how random. And so you get this book called the Adventure Book. And so the Adventure Book has this storyline in it. And what I didn't understand when looking at it was because I've played other games where it's a board game but it comes with an adventure book, because the map that you play on is laid out in pieces, and so as you go from quest to quest, you position the pieces in different ways, right? And so it gives you a different map. And then there's lots of different bad guys, and so you fight your way through lots of different bad guys in this particular game. It plays a lot like D&D, and a little less freedom, obviously, than D&D has, because you do have to operate within the rules of the board game. But still, this one in particular plays a lot like D&D. Okay. Yes. This is close to where I want to be. And so the map in the book shows like these rooms all connected together, right? And so I'm like, okay. But then the game also is like, put together these cards. And I'm like, okay. So I did that. No, the problem is I didn't read the instructions very well. That's what happened. Hands down, that's what happened. I did not read through the instructions well enough. And so so what happened is I thought that the map in the um, crap. Okay. The problem is that I thought the map in the book was a map. But what it was, well, it was a map, but I thought it was this is the shape of the dungeon. Instead, it was, these are the series of dungeons. So, when we first played it, I had us fight through 3 rooms because that's what looked to me like to me. I'm like, okay, so we've got 3 rooms. Well, there were like 6 rooms or 7 rooms. Oh crap! And um, let me guess, not enough to make a. Oh man! Oh, see those vultures? Oh crap! Okay, I need some grass quick. Oh dang it! Why didn't he come out when I was fighting that other vulture? You cheaty vultures! I hate him. I hate him so much. He clearly wasn't flying with me. He wasn't there till I started getting grass. All right. So now I'm up here, and my mini bike is way down there. So now we gotta try and get through town, so I can make myself a place to stay. And so I was wrong. It was a series of dungeons, not a map of the rooms. And so it made more sense this week. There's still some things I've got to figure out. Clearly, I didn't understand correctly, but yeah, we died. We did not survive the battle. It's got an interesting. I like the combat system in it. The combat system, you get 2 actions per turn, and you can use an action to move or attack or whatever. And so you have abilities, and those abilities are most often attacks. And so the idea is that you get into combat, you might need to use an action to move, or you might use both your actions to attack, right? But you can't use the same ability more than once per turn. So you've got 2 abilities. And so on the ability card, it tells you what happens if you hit, what happens if you miss, what happens if you get a crit. Not everybody's cards have all of those. Some of them only have what happens if you crit. Some of them only have, I don't know, if you crit and miss. something along those lines. Crit and hit, maybe. The character I'm playing is an assassin, and his starting abilities only allow him to do damage if he crits. Now, in D&D, that would be an awful thing, because in D&D, you have to get a natural 20 for most instances to get a critical hit, which is fairly rare. You might get a couple a night, or you might have a good night and you get like 6, but it's not every time, right? And so, in Bard Song, instead, what happens is you roll your d20, and your d20 determines whether or not you hit, and then you roll a damage dice associated with your weapons or your ability, and then that determines whether or not you get a crit. So once you've rolled and you hit, you've hit. But if you can roll the toughness number of the guy you're fighting or higher, it's a crit. And so the assassin that I'm playing, he only crits, or he only does damage on a crit. Otherwise, he can dodge, basically. And so then my nephew who's playing with me, not the one that plays D&D, but the one who lives here in the house, he um, he decided to play this shaman character. So he also only does damage if he crits. Now the thing is that my assassin has some bonuses that allow him to crit easier, and he uses a bigger dice. He uses a d6 for his weapons, whereas the shaman character that my nephew played, he uses a d4. And so most of the bad guys have a toughness of at least 4. So you gotta get a 4 or you ain't doing nothing. And so his shaman barely does anything ever. And then I was just having bad rolls. I couldn't roll higher than a 2, which if it was just me and one bad guy would be fine. But the bad guys are also in big groups every time we would go to fight them. So it was hard for me to hit anything. He couldn't hit anything. And then the first time we played, if you're playing with 2 people, they suggest you take I don't want to say an apprentice, a squire, something along those lines, a follower, which is basically just a card that gives you an extra ability you can do on your turn. But um, we decided that instead of that, we were just going to have my nephew control 2 characters. So the other character actually could hit on a hit and do damage. But man, we could not hit anything other than that one character, which doesn't do really well when you're in a room full of 5 bad guys, right? It was 3 on 5, and yeah, and so we burned through our 3 allowed potions pretty quickly. Because the way the game works, if one of the heroes dies, then you failed, because it's a story of this particular group of heroes, and so if that particular group of heroes does not survive, then there is no continuing game, and so you have to start the chapter over or whatever, the dungeon over. So in our first dungeon, after learning how to run the dungeons, we did not survive. That's not true. It was our third dungeon because we did the tutorial, because the tutorial is part of the story. And I didn't realize it was part of the story. And then when I started playing my nephew, he didn't get the intro to the story. And so I started over so he could get the intro to the story. But yeah, we got killed. Turns out hobgoblins are stronger than our Kinku assassin, a Tortle shaman, and high elf wizard. I was the only one that died, although I did die 2 of the 3 potions you have available. So yeah, you get it's a pretty interesting board game. It's got these tokens along the side of the map, and 3 of them are charms, because some abilities in the game, oh man, I have gone the wrong direction. Some abilities in the game use fate points, and the fate points, there's 3 of them to start with anyways. I don't know if you ever increase the number of fate. I think it's per character, so we've got 3 characters, so we've got 3 fates. and then you've got things happen to restore the fate points. But if you haven't restored fate points and you need to use a fate point, you can use a charm. But a charm is an item versus the, you know, fate point. And the then there's firewood for camping, which is a mechanic in the game to let you heal and stuff. And then there's the potions, and I think there's something else. Firewood, charms. Oh, tools, which allow you to open secret doors. And so the way the game works is you get money when you defeat an enemy type on a particular fight, or you get them from the challenge cards that pop up as well. And then it costs 7 gold, and you get like 1 gold for defeating an enemy, right? Not an enemy, a pack of enemies. So like if there's 5 brigands on the map, when you defeat all 5 brigands, you get 1 gold, kind of thing. And so, all right, I need to go this way. So, so yeah, you have to spend 7 gold to restore a charm, a tool, uh, firewood, a potion, something along those lines. And so yeah, so it's pretty interesting game. I like the combat system. I just wish that they started you with different abilities, because once you complete your first dungeon, like if we had won that fight, we would have each gotten 1 experience point to spend, and I could have purchased throwing knives. And so then my assassin character goes from um, up close fighting, needing a crit to hit, to uh, ranged attacks with doing damage on a hit, and then double damage on a crit, kind of thing. And so, yeah, I definitely wanted us to get through that first dungeon, but we did not manage. But maybe we'll try again this weekend. Um, we'll see. All right, I'm going back up here because I want this place to be my base. Not a real base, but I mean, it could be a real base. It is closer to more places to... Man, this guy's tough. There we go. Do I have ladders on me? No. Might I have, say, 20 ladders? Bike, you're like right in the way. Weird. No, why is... What's going on with this ladder? Great, now it's nighttime. Does it not seem like this ladder wants to go 1 block back from where I'm at? Okay, and then the bed wants to be 1 block up. Interesting. Nope. Nope. Oh, wow. I can't believe that didn't kill me. Alright, we're gonna get this in place, and then we'll call it a day. All right. Can I put a ladder on the front of that? Yes. Okay. So apparently I'm going to have to build my platform here because the roof on this place is weird and like half a block or a quarter block off or something. But you know, I do have 100 of these blocks on me, so. And then we get a bedroll down. Nope. Then we punch the wall. And look at that. I have a new base. This is my new base. Looks like plenty of room to build on. Just got to build out a platform. Although it's not very high off the ground, and I usually prefer my bases to be higher off the ground. So I might shop around a little bit more next week, but I don't know. All right, with that, be better than small things, leading to the light. I will talk to you later.